if what I'm doing is okay. I haven't had any kind of inspiration to that regard yet.
A courtroom heavy with tension and tears served as the unexpected stage for the unraveling of what once was America's most talked about polygamous family. Kody Brown, once hailed as the patriarch of a proud, spiritually unified clan, now stood before the bench not as a leader but as a man brought low by betrayal, regret, and the consequences of his choices. The double doors groaned open and all eyes turned as he entered, not with the swagger viewers remembered from TLC's cameras, but with a quiet, almost apologetic gait. His face, pale and drawn, bore the burden of sleepless nights and years of emotional erosion. The shoulders that once proudly carried the narrative of plural unity now sagged under the weight of disillusionment, fractured relationships, and the irreversible scars left behind in the wake of favoritism and abandonment. The courtroom wasn't just filled with legal officials or journalists. It was packed with history, broken trust, and the silent screams of children who had watched their family fall apart in real time, both behind closed doors and beneath the scrutiny of the public eye. Robyn Brown sat to Kody's right, her face blotchy from tears that had clearly started long before sunrise. Her posture was collapsed inward, her eyes swollen, and her hands fidgeting with a damp, shredded tissue that clung to her fingers like guilt itself. Her appearance was deliberately plain, void of any pretense or performance. This wasn't a TLC reunion or a fan panel. This was the raw, unfiltered fallout of choices made in secret and patterns set in motion long before the cameras. We're rolling. To Kody's left sat Janelle, composed and unreadable. Her silence was louder than any words Robyn might whisper or Kody might confess. Her stare was focused straight ahead, unwavering, almost frozen. Yet beneath her poised demeanor burned a restrained inferno, the anguish of a woman who had waited, hoped, pleaded, and been denied, not only her rightful place, but the consistent fathering of her children. Behind her sat some of her older sons, Gabriel among them, arms crossed, lips pursed, eyes unwavering. They had endured the emotional fallout in silence long enough. Today, silence would be shattered. The judge, a seasoned woman known for her no-nonsense demeanor, called the courtroom to order. She didn't glance up immediately as she sorted through thick stacks of exhibits, motions, and written testimonies. Her voice, when it finally emerged, was clinical and sharp. This hearing pertains to distribution of assets from the Brown, family trust, alleged emotional distress, temporary custody arrangements for minor dependents, and abandonment claims. Audible gasps echoed from the gallery. This wasn't a family mediation. This was war. Janelle's lawyer, impeccably dressed in navy and armed with a folder fattened by years of receipts, literal and metaphorical, rose. This isn't just about property, he said, voice firm. This is about emotional dereliction of duty. This is about a man who misused communal funds, discarded spiritual obligations, and chose romantic favoritism over paternal responsibility. He pointed subtly toward the gallery, where several of Kody's children sat. We'll provide corroborated testimonies, calendar inconsistencies, bank transfers favoring one household over others, and direct messages between Mr. Brown and our client that show a history of manipulation, gaslighting, and emotional neglect. Kody swallowed, staring at the floor. His fingers twitched in his lap. The confidence that once turned television viewers into believers had been replaced by an air of fragility. Robyn's lawyer then stood, contrastingly calm. My client seeks peace, she said, but peace is not the absence of truth. We have letters, statements, and first-hand accounts that show Robyn's role as a peacemaker, a mother, and a wife who tried, repeatedly, to hold this family together despite public persecution and private collapse. The judge turned to Kody. Mr. Brown, do you wish to speak? He rose slowly, visibly trembling. Yes, Your Honor. His voice was a whisper, barely audible, thick with unspent tears. I never imagined we'd be here. We started this journey with faith, with unity, with love. But somewhere, I lost the thread. I stopped showing up. I stopped listening. He turned to his children. To my kids, I failed you. I see it now. I see what not being present cost you. I believed in plural love, but I didn't live it equally. and for that, I am truly sorry. The judge called for a recess, but no one moved. Then a small sound, shuffling paper. Robyn stood, slowly making her way to the witness stand. Her black dress was modest, her shoulders hunched. In her hands were yellowed, folded letters. "These," she said, voice cracking, "these were written when he still loved me." Gasps again. Janelle's attorney rose to object, then paused. Robyn began reading. "I can't be everything for everyone. I chose you, Robyn, and they'll never forgive us for it." She looked up. "Even when he loved me, he resented me. They, Janelle, Christine, Meri, they hated me for being chosen. But I never asked to be chosen. I just wanted to belong." The courtroom was still. Not even the stenographer moved. "I remember the night he stopped pretending," Robyn whispered. "He told me they hate us, I can't do it anymore. And from that night on, we were no longer a plural family, we were fragments." She turned toward Cody. "You blamed me, but I was just standing where the house fell." More testimony followed. Personal texts, forgotten birthdays, bank statements, photos of holidays spent alone. Each moment peeled back the veneer of the family fans had adored. The Brown family's collapse was no longer speculation. It was fact, documented and devastating. By the time court adjourned, Cody was staring blankly ahead. Janelle remained stone-faced. Robyn sat hunched, eyes red but defiant. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed, but the real story had already unfolded within those four walls. A story of power, favoritism, abandonment, and a patriarch who lost his place not by betrayal from others, but by betraying the very principles he once preached. This was no longer sister wives. This was the aftermath, and the reckoning had only just begun.
Because this is going to be a totally different experience.
You ready to lead Flagstaff?
Yeah, I love it. I love it, but I'm ready for all of a sudden. I guess maybe because this is now an option. I'm like,
"Mrs. Brown, what do you have to ask of this court?" The words hung in the air like a gavel already fallen, and Robyn Brown, the most polarizing figure in the courtroom, nodded slowly, her posture fragile, her breaths deliberate. She inhaled shakily, then spoke in a voice that quivered but didn't falter. "I don't want his money. I don't want revenge. I want the truth to be on record. That I tried, that I loved, that I sacrificed, even when I was hated for it, and that I will continue. Raising our children without bitterness, but with boundaries." The courtroom grew impossibly still. Her words, though calm, struck like flint against stone, pain, shame, and truth intermingling in every syllable. She stepped down from the witness stand, her hands trembling slightly, her knees wobbling beneath the weight of years of exhaustion. As she returned to her seat, one tear traced a solemn path down her cheek. For the first time in years, she didn't wipe it away. She allowed it to fall, openly, defiantly, no longer afraid of public perception or judgment. Cody stared at her, his face a strange mask of blankness, expressionless, unreadable, like a man who just realized he was watching the collapse of a world he once thought he controlled. In the row behind him, Janelle sat upright, her face unreadable. She gave away nothing. No flinch, no raised brow. Perhaps she was shocked. Perhaps not. But something between them all had changed permanently. The emotional gravity in the room shifted again as Janelle Brown stood, quiet, unshaking, holding no tissues or legal pads. Her steps were slow but certain, not hesitant but grounded, like a woman who had lived through fire and walked out tempered. She took the witness stand and sat with poise, folding her hands calmly in front of her. Her eyes, when they met the judges, were razor sharp, not filled with hatred, but with a chilling clarity born from deep, soul-carving disappointment. Her strength came not from dominance, but from pain that had calcified into resolve. "Please state your name for the record," the judge requested. "Janelle Brown," she replied evenly. "And your relation to the parties involved?" "Spiritual wife to Cody Brown for more than 25 years, mother to 6 of his children, and now, advocate on behalf of all of them." The room seemed to hold its collective breath. The judge nodded. Janelle leaned forward, her voice quiet, but with the force of a storm behind it. "Let me be specific. This is not about money. This is about my kids." It wasn't a plea. It was a pronouncement. A hammer falling without needing volume. The boys needed a father. What they received was silence. A slow discomfort crept into the courtroom, and Cody stiffened in his seat. His lips compressed into a narrow white line, hands tightening on the edge of the table. Still, he said nothing. Janelle continued unwavering. I'm not talking about missed dinners or unanswered texts. I'm talking about birthdays forgotten, graduations skipped, illnesses faced alone, sons who had to become men without a father's blessing or even a "I'm proud of you." Her voice dipped into a dangerous calm, a storm's eye. Then she paused. The air shifted again, cold and full of dread. One of those sons is no longer with us. A whisper of movement from the gallery, someone shifting uncomfortably. Even the judge adjusted in her chair, the room collectively bracing. Garrison didn't just die from grief, he died from abandonment. The weight of those words dropped like a bomb. Gasps were muffled. A low sob came from one of Janelle's daughters in the audience, who quickly brushed her cheek, trying not to draw attention. He reached out, again and again, Janelle said, her voice cracking slightly. He begged his father to visit. He left messages that were never returned. He waited on birthdays and holidays for a call that never came. And when he passed, Cody cried on camera. But my son never heard those tears. Cody bowed his head lower, unable or unwilling to meet her eyes. Janelle didn't pause long. Now he wants joint custody of my youngest children? The same man who hasn't been home for Christmas in 3 years? The same man who retreated to Robyn's house while the rest of us endured heartbreak, funerals, and disappointment? She shook her head slowly. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because my children deserve protection. They deserve consistency. They deserve the truth. The courtroom felt on edge, like a held breath about to break. The judge glanced briefly at Cody, whose knuckles had gone pale. Janelle turned to Robyn for the first time. We were raised on principles of unity, she said. That's what plural marriage was supposed to be about. Sharing love, building strong homes, raising children together. But that unity died the day Robyn became the center of Cody's world. And I don't say that to fault her. I say that because that's the moment my children were pushed to the sidelines, as if they no longer mattered. Robyn looked down, visibly wounded. Janelle reached into a folder and produced a printout, a text exchange. She handed it to her lawyer, who submitted it into evidence. The judge skimmed it quickly. This is my son Gabriel, Janelle said, voice tight. Texting Cody, begging him to come over for his birthday. There was no reply. Not even a simple happy birthday. Her voice wavered but didn't break. Do you know what it feels like to watch your child gradually understand that his father has checked out? To see him numb himself, not because he's strong, but because he's been hurt too many times to feel safe anymore. She finally let a tear escape but still didn't crack. Her voice remained deliberate. I won't let that happen to the younger kids. I won't have them sitting at windows waiting for a man who shows up only when cameras roll or when a narrative needs to be patched together. They deserve more. A silence followed, so thick it was hard to breathe. Finally, the judge spoke. Mrs. Brown, are you asking for sole legal and physical custody? Yes, Your Honor, Janelle said, and I want a family therapist involved in any visitation. I don't want my children emotionally destroyed like their brothers were. The judge nodded, making notes. Janelle stood to return to her seat but stopped. She turned back, her voice softer, almost wistful. I used to believe we were building something beautiful, that love could be shared and multiplied. But I learned the hard way that love without commitment is just a promise waiting to be broken. Then she turned, strong but solemn, and walked back to her table. She sat beside her daughter and took her hand. No words, just strength. The entire courtroom's attention shifted to Cody. He sat still for a moment, then slowly rose. His movements were lethargic, as if underwater. The once vibrant, commanding patriarch of a televised polygamist empire looked like a shell of himself. His suit, expensive but ill-fitting, hung awkwardly on a frame that seemed diminished. His face bore lines that hadn't been there just a few years ago. Pain had aged him. Regret had hollowed him out. For a second, he just stood there, hands at his sides, shoulders slumped. Then, with the ghost of his old charisma, he cleared his throat and stepped forward. "May I speak?" he asked softly, voice thin but audible. All eyes turned toward the man who once claimed to have mastered the art of leading multiple families, with balance and grace. But no one, not even Robyn, could say what he'd offer now. Justifications, tears, or silence. The harm, as Janelle said, was already done. The courtroom held its breath again.
That people could stay in, and maybe some sort of big event retreat space. I don't know. These are all the ideas that we're throwing out at this point.
How many acres is it?
160.
The judge nodded. "You may proceed, Mr. Brown." Cody shifted not toward the judge, not even toward his attorney, but turned instead to the crowd, the family, the witnesses, the past. His eyes lingered on the two women who had spent decades of their lives woven into his, on the children who now stared at him through a veil of disappointment and heartbreak, and finally to the empty seat in the courtroom where his son, Garrison, might have sat had life gone differently. "I failed," he whispered, his voice raw and stripped of all pretense. "I failed as a husband, as a father, and as a man." Audible gasps rippled through the courtroom, not from shock, but from the recognition of a rare moment of brutal honesty. "I thought I could be everything to everybody," he continued, his voice cracking. "I thought I could have a family of 4 wives, 18 children, and keep everyone close, balanced, loved. But I was wrong. Dead wrong." His hands trembled at his sides, the same hands that once proudly held newborns, signed property documents, and clutched the hands of wives in commitment ceremonies. "Plural marriage wasn't just a lifestyle I chose, it was a calling," he said, blinking back a tear. "At least I believed it was. I felt like God had given me a mission. But I now see it was an illusion. I used it to escape my reality, to distract myself from responsibilities I was too overwhelmed to face." The silence in the room was deafening. He took a breath that sounded more like a confession than a pause and turned to Janelle. "I separated myself from your children. I chose comfort over commitment. Robyn became my sanctuary, and I allowed that sanctuary to turn into favoritism. That favoritism became the fault line, the crack that eventually shattered everything." Robyn, seated beside her attorney, had tears streaking silently down her cheeks. For the first time, she wasn't defending, reacting, or crumbling. She simply listened as decades of misunderstanding found a name. "I didn't mean to abandon anyone," Cody admitted, "but my actions spoke volumes. I let go of the rest of you and clung to what felt safe. And when Garrison died, a part of me died too. And I know what everyone here is thinking. That I wasn't there, that I didn't do enough, that I didn't say enough. And you're right." He paused, visibly struggling to maintain composure. "I read the texts, I heard the voicemails, but I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know how to fix what I'd broken. So I did nothing." He clenched his fists, willing his voice not to waver. "I kept telling myself that I was protecting Robyn, shielding the younger kids, containing the chaos. But I wasn't protecting anyone. I was hiding. From guilt, from shame, from myself." His eyes flicked toward 2 of his sons in the gallery. Both stared blankly ahead, stone-faced. "To my children," he said, "I don't expect forgiveness. I wouldn't forgive me either. I missed birthdays. I missed their pain. I let them carry burdens that were never theirs to carry." In the back row, a younger daughter buried her face in her sister's shoulder. The sob she let out felt like a wound breaking open. "And to you, Janelle," Cody continued, gentler now, "you were the pillar of this family. You kept things moving, kept the kids grounded, kept faith alive while I stood at the front and pretended to lead. I ignored your strength. I ignored your sons. I left you alone to tally my failures." Janelle remained unreadable, her spine straight, her hands still. But the shimmer in her eyes betrayed something between heartbreak and release. Cody turned to Robyn. "I leaned on you too much. he said quietly. "I turned you into a scapegoat, in the public's eyes. I pulled you into the spotlight and then let that same light become a weapon. You didn't destroy this family. I did. Even when you asked me to make amends with the others, I chose silence. I let ego replace empathy. I let religion cover up responsibility. And when it all got too hard, I withdrew, instead of engaging." His voice cracked again. "I'm not asking for custody, not now. Not until I can show, not tell, but show that I am worthy of being in my children's lives again. I need to earn that right." The judge, who had been scribbling notes during every other testimony, sat motionless now. Her hands were still. This wasn't a deposition. This was something else, something closer to mourning than justice. Cody exhaled, deflated, like the admission itself had siphoned out the last of his pride. "No ruling can fix what I've done. But maybe it can start something new. Not a reconciliation, but a reckoning. A truth we can all finally build on. Even if that means stepping away, even if that means letting go of control. If it gives my children peace, then so be it." Then, with no flair, no theatrics, he returned to his seat. There was no applause. No condemnation. Only stillness. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was sacred. And for once, Cody didn't try to fill it. He simply accepted it. The next morning dawned under gray skies, as if the world outside understood the gravity of what was unfolding. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was different. No tension, no anticipation, just fatigue. The emotional exhaustion hung over everyone. Robyn arrived early, no makeup, no smile. Her lawyer sat beside her, but she didn't look at them. Janelle entered later, flanked by her daughters like generals escorting a commander. She didn't glance in Cody's direction. The judge took her seat, her robe rustling softly, and opened a simple folder. No drama, no lingering looks. Having considered all testimony, evidence, and behavioral documentation, this court now enters its final decision, she stated. The gallery sat up straighter. All residual property and community assets shall be equally divided between the parties, excluding those held in trust for minor dependents. A gentle exhale came from Janelle's side of the room. Not celebration, just closure. Robyn Brown shall retain sole legal and physical custody of her minor children with Mr. Kody Brown. No joint custody will be awarded at this time. Robyn's eyes flickered downward. No emotion, no reaction, just resolve. Mr. Kody Brown shall undergo 6 months of court-ordered therapy and family counseling sessions prior to being granted supervised visitation rights with his children. Gasps whispered around the room. Even among those who had expected strict terms, this was more than anticipated. The judge's voice hardened. Additionally, Mr. Brown shall have no electronic, written, or verbal contact with Janelle Brown's children unless initiated voluntarily and overseen by therapeutic review. Cody didn't move. He simply lowered his head. The silence now felt reverent, like the final note of a requiem. This ruling is effective immediately. This court is now adjourned. The gavel fell, and with that single motion, decades of chaos, love, betrayal, and failed hope were sealed in legal finality. Lawyers gathered their things. Reporters began dictating updates. Security ushered out the public. Robyn stood slowly, moving like a ghost past the doors. No longer crying, no longer explaining. Just gone. Janelle rose too, her coat buttoned, her daughters close. A reporter stepped forward on the courthouse steps and asked, "Ms. Brown, any final words?" Janelle paused only briefly. "We're done surviving now. We start healing." She didn't wait for a follow-up. Her steps were calm, her direction forward. Inside, the courtroom slowly emptied until only Cody remained. He sat frozen, staring at the witness stand, the place where he had admitted his truth, where Janelle demanded protection, where Robyn shed her final tears. So many words had been spoken in that chair. None could be taken back. It was no longer a piece of furniture. It was a monument to everything he lost. The judge had left. The attorneys were gone. The lights were dimming. Still, Cody stayed, His mind replayed birthdays missed, tears ignored, hands not held. And finally, with effort, he stood up, not victorious, not condemned, but transformed. The doors closed behind him, not just on a courtroom, not just on a marriage, but on an entire legacy. A legacy built on faith, undone by pride. A family. Once known for unity, now remembered for silence. Families don't break from distance. They break from neglect. Kody Brown didn't lose his family in one moment. He lost them in all the moments he failed to show up. And as he walked out into the gray light, the wind heavy with unspoken words, there was no redemption. Just a beginning. A fragile one, but a beginning nonetheless. For full breakdowns, emotional updates, and all the behind the scenes you won't see on TLC, subscribe to our channel, Star Spill USA, where the truth gets told no matter how messy.